Hi everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Megan Claire Hammond. I am a nuclear energy regulatory attorney at Pillsbury Winthrop Shaw Pittman, and today we are going to be constructing a model of a helium atom. So before we get started, I just want to make sure that you have everything you need in front of you. The first is this diagram of a helium atom that you will need, which is on the American Nuclear Society's website. If you just go to Get to Know Nuclear and search down that page into section F, you should see this. And you can print it out at home. It's okay if you don't have a color printer. You can print it out in black and white, and then you can see what I'm holding here. Just use some markers or crayons to color in the different protons and neutrons and electrons. You can see here, you don't have to color this in. This is just our energy electron orbit. And a few of these, it's better if you have some thick construction paper. I don't, so we're going to be building a little bit of a flimsy helium atom. But if you have some thick construction paper, I would print that out on that. You can print it out double-sided if you want. And so you'll have something on both sides. I did that with my printer, but it didn't line up exactly. So we're just gonna go bare bones with this. And so you're just gonna need this paper printed out or printed in color or colored in yourself. And you're gonna need some scissors. So be safe with your scissors. Everybody has some very sharp scissors. And you're gonna need a little bit of string. I have my very bright purple string with me. I went to Northwestern University, so I like to use purple. And then the next thing that we're gonna do is cut out all of our different elements here. So our electrons, our protons, and our neutrons. And then I'm also gonna cut out these force fields. I'm just gonna cut them out along the lines, and I'll show you what I do and how I do that. But before we get started, just a little bit about helium and the helium atom. So helium is number 2 on the atomic table. And why is it number 2? Because it has 2 protons. So we're gonna go ahead and make that today. If you think about what is element 1 on the periodic table, it's hydrogen, and hydrogen just has 1 proton. So, but today we're making helium with our 2 protons, and we'll get started on that. I'm just gonna do a little cutout for you guys, and we'll go through that. Should have all of our different pieces cut out. I have 2 rings with my 2 electrons on them that I cut out the middle parts of. If you have trouble cutting out the middle parts, I just fold them in half and then cut the middle and then kind of cut around. And then I have a fully formed nucleus, and then I have all my neutrons, my 2 neutrons, my 2 electrons, and my 2 positive protons. And we're gonna put those together right now. I'm gonna show you how to do it. So the fun thing is each of these little guys has a little slit on it. And so you're gonna cut that little blue slit in each of your neutrons and protons, and then we're gonna make the nucleus of the atom. So it's super easy to do. You don't need any glue or anything. You just cut, make 4 little cuts here, and you're gonna make 1 tiny 5th cut for this little blue line at the top. That's where we're gonna put our string that we're gonna hang off of our electron orbit, so you can see. So now I have these with 4 little cuts in them. I'm gonna take my neutron, I'm gonna make a cut there, my separate neutron, make a cut in each of those along the line. So neutrons don't have any charge, but they still have an atomic mass unit. So if you think the atomic mass unit of a helium atom is 4 point, I think it's 0.00026. It's a lot of numbers, but it's at the atomic mass unit. Sometimes people call that the AMU. And the reason why it's about 4 is because you have about 4 of these guys in the nucleus. You have 2 protons and 2 neutrons. So you have an atomic mass unit of about 4. That's one of the reasons why helium is so low on the periodic table, is because it's considered like a light atom. So you see what I did there was I just took my proton and I slid it on top of the slit of the other proton. So now I'm making my nucleus. So now I have my 2 positive protons. I'm actually going to flip this guy. I'm going to put my neutrons on there. I'll hold it up here so you can see it. Again, this is probably why you want some thick construction paper, because these will hold together a little bit better if you have thicker paper. Great. So look at this. We have 2 protons and 2 neutrons. So we've made the nucleus of a helium atom, which is super cool. And now we're going to do the electronic force and the charge with our, this is pretty, with our electrons. So we'll put this in here in our electron orbit. So I'll show you how to do those. I'm going to put my nucleus down for just a moment while I construct these. You'll see I have 2 little slits on my electron orbits here. So they're gonna kind of fit together like this. So you have an atom that is little. When you have a nucleus inside, you have this electronic force that goes through with the thing. So it'll look a little bit like this when you're done. So I'm just gonna make those cuts real quick. So just a little one on the bottom and one on the top of each of the electron orbits. And then we're just going to slot them together the same way that we slotted together the nucleus. Great. Having a little bit of trouble with my orbits here. These are the trickiest parts, so don't get discouraged if it takes you a second to get it together. Great. All right. And so now, I have a very flimsy but cool orbit, and I'm just going to turn my camera down so you guys can see what this looks like when it's standing up. It just looks like this. And the next thing we're going to do is cut the little slits of the electrons on our electron orbit and the slits of our 2 electrons and put them together the same way that we did for the nucleus of the helium atom. So you can see this here. I have the slit that I haven't put a slit in my electron, so that's not going to work. Trying to keep my cat from stealing my electrons. And look, there we got a great electron that's going to keep everything in orbit and keep our nucleus contained. So just take your other electron, make a slit, and you should have something like this. And it stands up a little on its own, even though I have really flimsy paper. So the wonders of engineering from American Nuclear Society. So these are my two electronic orbits, and I have them sitting here. So the next thing that I'm going to do is suspend my nucleus from that. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to take some of my very bright purple string. I'm going to cut some of that off. And then the next part, which I think Girl Scouts are very familiar with, is we're going to tie a few knots. So just tie a few knots, just like you would do if you're threading a needle and you're about to start sewing something. You just take your thread and you want to get like about 3, 4, 5 knots, however much it takes to make like a little thick knot so that you don't have anything slipping off. And this is sometimes the hardest part, and we're going to stick this through our nucleus, and so it can be suspended in the helium atom and the electrons can go outside of it. So I don't know if you can see there, I made a pretty substantial little knot, and I'm going to take my knot through the 5th slit we made in the nucleus and kind of slide that down in there. And so now what do I have? A floating nucleus. And so the next part of this is that I'm going to take my nucleus and I'm going to tie it to the top of my electron orbit. So we're going to suspend it in there. It should kind of sit in the middle. It says if you get about 3 inches of string, that should be enough for it to sit in the middle. I guesstimated a little bit, but you guys can see when you tie it all together that the nucleus will sit in there. It might take you a few tries to tie it. This is honestly the toughest part. And I need to move my camera down. See if I can move this out a little bit so you can see my struggle here. And if you want to unfold your electron orbits and, oh, I lost my nucleus. We're going to rethread it quickly. That's what we call an unstable atom. There we go. We're back almost to stability here. What I'm going to do to make this a little bit easier on myself is I'm going to fold this back up and tie it on top, and then I will show you guys when I'm all done. All right, and so there you have it. This is our finished model. Again, I'm with flimsy paper, so if you have construction paper, I bet yours looks a lot better than mine, and you're also probably a lot better at not tying. But you can see here I have my 2 protons, my 2 neutrons, and then my electric force with my electrons going in on the outside, and that is that's a helium atom. So where do you find a lot of helium atoms besides balloons, which is very fun, and that's why balloons go up, right? Because helium is a very light element. Helium and hydrogen, they float in the air, so we know they're really light elements. You find a lot of helium atoms in the sun, along with hydrogen atoms, and those can work together to create fusion, which creates energy. And I'm sure you've learned a lot about that in this section, but thank you so much for building this model with me. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and a great week. Thanks so much. Have a good night.